and these people are just trampling each other and killing people in grisly ways. It feels like Eli Roth's homage to a zombie movie like Dawn of the Dead, where customer service employees have to somehow deal with the hordes of crazed holiday shoppers who just wish to consume, and they literally become these monsters that they have to battle. And that is really cool.
Hello, and thank you for checking out the video. I just want to let you know that I not only create content on my YouTube channel, Class in the Glass, but I'm also on Twitch, where I review movies, cartoons, and TV shows live, while also playing single-player games and multiplayer games. I also have a Patreon where subscribers have access to hundreds of video and audio commentaries for films and cartoons, as well as podcasts and videocasts. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. Enjoy the video.
We're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the next part of my show, and that is my review for Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. I'm probably going to call it Thanksgiving several times throughout this review. Literally messed up the Twitch title description by calling it Thanksgiving. I had that movie on the brain chat, the one with the killer turkey.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
But it's called Thanksgiving 2023, Eli Roth's latest slasher film. And, kind of before jumping into the movie itself, kind of give you a bit of a history, a background, a synopsis, if you will. A deranged axe-wielding serial killer is terrorizing the residents of Plymouth, Massachusetts, a year after a tragic Black Friday-related death, murdering the victims in the most grisly of ways. The survivors soon learn they are all tied together in the killer's sinister quest for revenge. Now, before jumping into this film, I do want to kind of share my overall thoughts on Eli Roth as a filmmaker, as a writer, and as an actor. I'll admit at the top, I'm not a big fan of Eli Roth as a filmmaker and as a writer. Of the films of his that I have seen, Cabin Fever, Green Inferno, Hostel, Knock Knock, I feel like his filmography, to be completely honest, is just atrocious and indulges in the worst aspects of the horror genre. A genre I honestly really love. He's more about the shock of it all. That's where he's always come across to me. He's more about the shock of it all, and everything else to me is secondary or tertiary to him. His characters are vapid and annoying, often vapid and annoying. His practical and digital effects often look really cheap, and I've always thought his direction is just amateur, to the point many of his movies look like they were made by first-time immature filmmakers. I think his inexplicable success is not because of his films, but because he knew the right people in the industry, and he made the right connections to people like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, and others that helped prop him up. I mean, good for him that you knew the right people and everything. And I don't want to take any umbrage of that, but I think that's the reason why he's been as successful as he has been. Now, listen, all that being said, I'm happy to say that Thanksgiving, a film that was originally just a grindhouse trailer from 15 years ago, I think it might even be older than that, but from 15 years ago, is definitely his best work that I've seen in his entire career. Now, that's not to say it's a perfect film or even a great one, especially since it's definitely borrowing heavily from one particular movie that I'm a huge fan of. But it does a lot right, especially when it comes to the opening. The opening of the movie in tone is different from the rest of the film, in my opinion, but it's still really entertaining. It's a year before Black Friday shopping. You have these people that enter into the store, and these people are just trampling each other and killing people in grisly ways. It feels like Eli Roth's homage to a zombie movie like Dawn of the Dead, where customer service employees have to somehow deal with the hordes of crazed holiday shoppers who just wish to consume, and they literally become these monsters that they have to battle. And that is really cool. That's the setup of the movie. And after that, it's like a year later, after that event, and a serial killer called the Carver is murdering people in Plymouth. And while this part of the film, which is about 2/3 of the movie, is entertaining enough, it feels like a weaker version of Scream to me. I think there's going to be a lot of comparisons to Scream with this movie. I mean, it borrows a lot. The premise is exactly that of Scream. You have a group of friends or characters who are all connected to a specific event from a year ago. They all suspect that one of them is the Carver. It goes back and forth until the big reveal, and then you have the big climactic finish, and the true villain is finally unearthed in typical dramatic fashion. Unlike in Scream, which I still feel to this day had great characters and also actors playing them. The characters here are just kind of meat for the grinder, in my opinion. They don't really have much in the way of personality between them, and they're just kind of set up to die. I wish someone like Kevin Williamson, who was the original screenwriter for Scream 1 and 2, he did a drafted 3, but they never made that one. Obviously, Scream 4 had like a pass on the script or punched it up to give these characters just more personality. So when something bad does happen to them, and be rest assured, Chad, I assure you, something horrible happens to many of these characters in the movie, I would actually like feel something for them other than, well, that was a really cool kill. Outside of Patrick Dempsey, who's in the movie, I don't recognize any of the other actors in the film, which is fine. You don't need to be like a recognizable face to, be a fantastic actor or, be in a horror film. I don't know. I just wish these characters, these actors, they just had more to do other than just die in really grisly ways, which they most certainly do. Dempsey definitely gets the most memorable role in the movie. You'll find out as to why, but I liked him. I did like him. Man, he's an interesting group. Remember when like everyone was like, oh, he's gonna be like this big leading man in theatrical films, because he was in like one of those hit, I want to say, medical drama shows. I always forget which one it is. Not ER. That's with George Clooney. Like was he Grey's Anatomy? I think he was in Grey's Anatomy, which like his huge series, right? And he eventually left it and he started doing some movies. And then he was like everyone's big pick to be like Doctor Strange way back in the day. Actually would have been perfect for the role. I was like, I could totally see it. But then something happened. I don't know if he just had some failures or whatever. And we only kind of see him sporadically. I feel, unless he's doing some other TV work. I don't know. But he's here and I think he's good. I think he's pretty good in the movie. And this is the other thing. Kind of going back to the kills. The kills and the practical effects in this are absolutely tremendous. They are bloody, they are gory, they are visceral, and the kills will make you wince. Yes, the Carver's primary weapon is an axe, but he kills, eviscerates, cooks, melts, disembowels people with numerous other tools throughout the film. These are some top tier horror kills that were pretty inventive, very fun, and also incredibly disturbing. Some of these are going to stick with you, chat. Some of these are going to stick with you long after you watch the movie and go like, oh, you just suddenly wince just thinking about it, which shows like how well put together they all were. Now, the film's third act is probably going to turn some people off. It's very obvious once we get to that part that this is from the guy who also directed Hostel and Green Inferno. Because watching the movie, I was like, wow, I can't believe Eli Roth directed this, for the most part. It's like, this is really competent. This is, for the most part, like really well made. And then it's like, oh, and then the third act happens. And yeah, this is very much from the guy who directed Hostel and Green Inferno, because it gets so gross and over the top in that part. It kind of indulges in this splatterhouse subgenre that we're seeing more and more of recently, like something like the Terrifier films, which I'm not particularly fond of. But if you happen to like those types of those movies, you might get more out of the third act than maybe an ending than I honestly did. Now, despite my complaints for the film, I certainly like this movie more than I didn't. It has a very strong opening. some incredible kills, and some nice campy humor layered throughout it too. You know, I think it could have maybe used a little bit more of that. Again, if the script just got a punch up, that's like kind of like my big issue with the movie. Like, I'll accept the super gross third act. I'm like, I'll be fine with that. But if they just got a different writer on this, because I don't think Eli Roth is credited as the main writer for the movie. But if they just got someone in there, again, a Ken Williamson, punch up this script, get the actors a little bit more to do other than just be meat for the grinder, then I think like, wow, this is like one of my favorite movies of the year. But it kind of just it misses that. It misses that mark. But also, you know, it's relatively well paced. It moves along consistently, and I was never bored watching it, which you know, I can't say is the same for like Hostel or Knock Knock or Green Inferno, which so much of that movie was just like, it was grossing, nothing happens, and then another gross scene. It was just kind of ended up being boring. This one, I think, has better pacing. And yeah, I never felt bored watching this movie, which is a nice change of pace for Eli Roth, in my opinion. I think it definitely could have been better. It could have been better in the hands of another filmmaker, and certainly another writer. But I think it's easily Eli Roth's best film that I've seen. I have not seen his children's movie, The House of the Clock on Its Walls. I'm curious to check that out because I've always heard good things about this. But of his filmography that I have seen, that I have witnessed, I do believe Thanksgiving is definitely his best movie by a mile. Easily, Chad. Like, it goes Thanksgiving and then everything else. I think maybe Cabin Fever, you know, is a distant second. But if you are not overly fond of Eli Roth like I am, I would actually encourage you, like, hey, you know, give this movie a chance. You might end up liking it more than you think, and that is certainly the case with me. But that's how I feel about Thanksgiving. I'm actually very curious to hear other people's opinions on this movie. I know my review is coming out a little later than other people. People have, I guess it's doing relatively well in the box office. It was a relatively cheap movie to make, and it made, like, I don't know, like around $15 million or something. So it's doing well. I imagine this is going to do well in VOD. It's kind of cool to have a holiday horror film because, you know, people, you know, will obviously like watch this movie during this time of the year, you know, for many years to come, I expect. So I'm curious to see what its performance is going to be like, obviously just in the box office alone, but then later on in the future. But for you guys out there, what do you think of the movie? Did you like it as much as I did? Did you not like it at all? Are you more mixed on it? And I'm very curious to hear.
I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I want to take the time to tell you about my Patreon, Class in the Glass, which offers hundreds of film commentaries and video reactions to numerous movies, TV shows, and cartoons. If you're a fan of shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar: The Last Airbender, or films like Aliens and Raiders of the Lost Ark, my Patreon is the platform for you. Currently, I'm doing a subathon to reach 75 subs on the platform. If we hit 75 subs, we'll be able to start voting on the next edited YouTube reaction, which will include actual clips and scenes from the movies and shows I comment over. Choose from such films as Fire and Ice, Masters of the Universe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or Spawn. Subscribing at any tier level is appreciated, and feel free to give feedback at any time. Thank you again for watching the video, and see you next time.